Hey everybody, so how we doing today? My internet is a bit intermittent, so I don't know if I'll be able to upload on time, but I'm hoping I will. But, just like the guy who pulls out too soon, Trump's pullout of Syria has guaranteed that the jizz will be everywhere. And speaking of that, Russia-backed Syrian army sweeps in after U.S. announces abrupt exit. Beirut to Ankara. Russia-backed Syrian forces took rapid advantage of an abrupt U.S. retreat from Syria on Monday, deploying deep inside the Kurdish-held territory south of the Turkish frontier less than 24 hours after Washington announced a full withdrawal. Washington's Kurdish former allies said they invited in the government troops as an emergency step to help fend off an assault by Turkey, launched last week after President Donald Trump moved his troops aside in what the Kurds called a betrayal. Washington's decision to abandon a policy it had pursued for 5 years gives Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan and Russia's Vladimir Putin free hands to shape the battlefield of the world's deadliest ongoing war. In particular, the Syrian army deployment is a victory for President Bashar al-Assad and his most powerful ally, Russia, giving them a foothold in the biggest remaining swath of the country that had been beyond their grasp. They will now face Turkish armed forces along a new front line hundreds of miles long. Syrian state media reported that the army entered Manbij, a town near the Turkish border in northeast Syria, that had been controlled by a military allied to U.S.-backed Kurdish forces. Earlier, it pushed into Tel Tamar, a town on the strategically important M4 highway that runs east-west around 30 kilometers south of the frontier with Turkey. State television later residents welcoming Syrian forces in the town of Al-Nisa, which lies on another part of the highway hundreds of miles away. Ain Issa commands the northern approaches to Raqqa, former capital of the Islamic State Caliphate, which Kurdish fighters recaptured from the militants 2 years ago in one of the biggest victories of a U.S.-led campaign. Yeah, I was all for an eventual withdrawal from the area, but this was just too damn soon and too damn quick. Too many things left undone, too many things left not taken care of. Should have got rid of ISIS first, and it should have been guaranteed that there would be no aggression from Turkey. That should have been how it was, but Trump was too quick. Too quick. World's fastest man, in a bad way. Much of the M4 skirts the southern fringe of territory where Turkey aims to set up a safe zone inside Syria. Turkey said it had seized part of the highway. An official of the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, said clashes were ongoing. U.S. strategy dissolves. The swift Syrian government deployment underscored how suddenly the strategy the United States had pursued in Syria for the past 5 years has dissolved. Washington announces on Sunday it was pulling out its entire force of 1,000 troops, which had provided air support, ground assistance, and training for Syrian Kurds against Islamic State since 2014. U.S. officials have said on Monday a diplomatic team working to help stabilize the territory captured from the Islamic State had already pulled out. U.S. troops were still on the ground, but early phase of withdrawal had started, the official said. 2 other U.S. officials have told Reuters the bulk of the U.S. pullout could be complete within days. Sunday's announcement of the U.S. retreat came just a week after Trump gave what the Kurds consider the go-ahead for Turkey to attack by shifting U.S. troops out of the way. Thousands of fighters from a Kurdish-led force have died since 2014, battling Islamic State in partnership with the United States, a strategy the Trump administration had continued after inheriting it from his predecessor Barack Obama. Trump says he aims to extract the United States from endless wars in the Middle East. And I say that's a good thing, but the way he's going about it is terrible. As I've said before in previous videos, he pulled out too quickly. He should have done it incrementally to make sure that the things that should be resolved were resolved by the time we pulled out, i.e. ISIS finally permanently defeated, and a guarantee that Turkey wouldn't attack Syria, would not attack the Kurds. Too many unresolved chains of events. And this is what happens. After the Americans abandoned the region and gave the green light for the Turkish attack, we were forced to explore another option, which is talks with Damascus and Moscow to find a way out and thwart these Turkish attacks. Senior Kurdish official Badran Kurd said. Kurd described the new arrangement with Assad's forces as a preliminary military agreement and said political aspects would be discussed later. It remains to be seen how the Kurds will be treated now that they have invited government troops into their region. Kurdish fighters began carving out autonomous rule in Syria's northeast early in its 8-year-old war, benefiting from diversions of Assad's military to fight rebels and militants elsewhere. Assad aims to restore his government's authority across all of the country. Another senior Kurdish politician, Alder Zalil, called the pact with Damascus an emergency measure. The priority is now protecting the border security from the Turkish danger. New front line. Ankara says its aim to defeat the Kurdish YPG militia, which it views as a terrorist group because of its links to Kurdish separatists in Turkey. A safe zone would be set up in Syria to resettle refugees, 3.6 million of whom are in Turkey. He goes on to say, "We are determined to continue the operation until the end without paying attention to threats," Erdogan said in a speech during a visit to Azerbaijan. "Our battle will continue until ultimate victory is achieved." Well, I suppose now that the United States has finally pulled out, and, Trump's not likely to send anyone back there for some time. So as much as I hate to say it, the Kurds are on their own. We've abandoned them. Plain and simple. Not to pontificate, but I was all for ending the endless wars in the Middle East and minding our own business. I am all for it, but not if it means abandoning our obligations and responsibilities. Take care of those first, and then withdraw. But did Trump do that? No. He decided to go the route that an idiot would take. Because that's what he is at this point. He's an idiot. And no, I do not have Trump derangement, believe me. The Turkish Defense Ministry said 560 militants had been neutralized since the operation began. Earlier, Erdogan said 500 militants had been killed, 26 surrendered, and 24 were wounded so far. The U.S. exit leaves Turkey and Russia as well as Iran, Assad's main Middle East ally, as Syria's undisputed foreign power brokers Ankara and Moscow both predicted they would avoid conflict in Syria, even as the front line between them will now spread across the breadth of the country. There are many rumors at the moment, however, especially though the embassy and with the positive approach of Russia in Kobani, it appears there won't be any issues, Erdogan said when asked about the prospect of confrontation with Russia. Kobani on the Turkish border is one of the first Kurdish-held cities where reports emerged of possible Syrian government deployment. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov dismissed the suggestion that Russia could clash with Turkish forces. "We wouldn't even like to think of that scenario," he said. The fighting has raised Western concerns that the Kurds would be unable to keep thousands of Islamic State fighters in jail and tens of thousands of their family members in camps. The region's Kurdish-led administration said 785 Islamic State-affiliated foreigners escaped a camp at Ain Issa over the weekend. The British-based War Monitor Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, citing sources in the camp, said the number who escaped was smaller, around 100. So all in all, it would seem that the Kurds have the Islamic State fighters for now. Have the Islamic State fighters well in hand. But Turkey's constant attacks on the Kurds through Syria may complicate matters. And it most certainly will. But would Turkey go so far as to maybe accidentally free or even purposely free Islamic State fighters just to get at the Kurds? Would Turkey go that far? Right then and there is where I think Trump should drop the economic hammer on Turkey and kill their economy. Make the lira completely worthless. Pardon the pun, but he still has that trump card should Turkey decide to misbehave to that level. But no. Will Trump have the good sense to do that, or is it just an empty threat? In his case, I think it is an empty threat. Like I said, the guy's an idiot. Didn't he go bankrupt a few times? Look at the way he's been managing our economy. At first it looked pretty good, but now it's falling apart. I mean, this guy's supposed to be a businessman, but his trade war with China, among other things, is becoming very, very disruptive to our country's economy. The man is an idiot. And yet, I would rather see him in office for 4 more years than see anyone like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, or even Kamala Harris. I would be okay. I'd be pretty okay with Tulsi Gabbard, or even Marianne Williamson. But the rest of them are absolutely worthless. I would rather see another 4 years of Trump, in spite of his apparent idiocy. But to finish off this article, Trump providing no evidence tweeted on Monday that the Kurds might be releasing Islamic State prisoners deliberately to lure U.S. troops back. Escaped fighters could be easily recaptured by Turkey or European nations from where many came, but they should move quickly, Trump said. EU countries have threatened to impose sanctions on Turkey over the assault. But on a meeting on Monday, they agreed not to impose an embargo. Member countries would instead consider their own restrictions on sales of weapons, a measure likely to brush off as trivial as U.S. accounts for just 45 million euros out of more than 150 billion euros in the Turkey-EU trade. Republican Democratic leaders of the U.S. Congress who have criticized Trump for abandoning the Kurds have announced plans for legislation to oppose sanctions. Turkey's trade with the United States is a fraction of its trade with Europe. So it sounds to me like they could say that Europe could actually do even more damage than we could. But when you consider the fact that the EU in this particular theater has been completely useless up to this point, which has been sometimes kind of hilarious in a way, since their uselessness can sometimes actually prove as a benefit rather than a detriment. But this is the bed that Trump has made. Time to sleep in it. Time to sleep in it. We abandoned the Kurds. We created a situation. On some level, I'm pretty sure we all knew this was going to happen. Question is, should we stay out of it or should we head back in? I'm not going to lie. It would probably be best if we just stay out of it. As far as a physical conflict. But if Turkey crosses the line and does something really awful, boom. Bring down the sanction hammer. Just smash it on their head. But Trump made his bed, now he has to lay in it. It's a misstep, but at least it's going to get us out of those endless wars in the Middle East. But why did he have to do it like this? Why, oh why? Anyway, peace!